There'll be a Barbara Coleman overview. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Gorel.
Present.
Hoffman.
Present.
Drury.
Present.
Kelly.
Here.
McDonald.
Present.
Nicolosi.
Here.
Red. Present. Salgado.
Present.
Schultz. Tassoni.
Present.
Webster.
Here.
Westcott.
Present.
Wilson.
Present.
Biondo.
Present.
Booker.
Present.
Boomer.
Here.
Crosby. Fellers.
Here.
Badusha.
Here.
Girl.
Present.
18 present, 2 absent.
Thank you, Clerk Mullins. With that, I would turn the invocation over to Mrs. Red.
And I yield to the Boy Scouts. Cub Scouts.
You guys got a full house to do this tonight.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Please bless that our time of glory, that they will make good decisions, and that we will do the right thing, and that please bless that the council will make good decisions, and we're grateful for safety, and that we will be able to find God, and that we will do the right thing. And I say these things in Jesus Christ's name.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job. Thank you very much. Our first item of business is public participation. Reverend Derek Shelby will be joining us. Thank you for joining us, Reverend. As Reverend Shelby is coming up, I'll read the disclaimer. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not address zoning matter which are pending before the ZBA, zoning committee, or county board. Personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation may not be discussed in open session. An individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic and a statement of what is purported to be a different topic. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. Reverend Shelby.
Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 and 11. That at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, of things in heaven, and things in earth, and things under the earth. And that every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. I've been asked twice tonight to be nice, if that's the right way to put it. But all the leaders are here tonight. Rockford has been pretty difficult on a certain segment of its population. And the Lord is not pleased. Every human being on this planet is going to bow down to Jesus Christ one day. Every knee shall bow. You're going to open up your mouth and tell him he's Lord. And it's simple because he's the only human being that didn't sin. All the rest of us got a problem. Every human being on the planet, in and out of church. And it's been enough for the dysfunction against a certain class of people. It's been enough. You know, look at the west side. They don't spend, they don't took probably $100 million, I figured, on the low end out of the west side, taxes. And ain't put a dime back in over 50 years. That's a disgrace, y'all. That's a disgrace.
Reverend Shelby, the topic you're speaking on is voting this evening, sir.
Okay. Well, I was trying to be nice, now you lead me somewhere else. But this seat that about to vote with Dr. Brown was supposed to get in the school board, it was taken from her. Duly elected. Voted in. I don't care what you think. Thank the Lord Jesus for his blood. And she won the vote. They took a thing saying in the paper 5 times, 3 or 4 or 5, that they was gonna flip a coin. Then they use a deck of cards. It's easy to stack a deck of cards. And then she won the recount by 2 votes. And it was still taken from her. Not one leader in the city stood up. That's wrong, y'all. That's wrong, and the Lord don't care nothing about color. That's a deception. That come out the devil's kitchen. And the Lord has defeated the devil. But our city should do better to the certain segment of the population that everybody knows what I'm talking about. Our children have been abused in this city.
Thank you, Reverend Shelby. We're at 3 minutes. Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker, Mayor Tom McNamara, to speak on the Barbara Coleman project. Thank you for being here, Mayor.
I have to follow the Boy Scouts and Reverend Shelby. That is a tough act to follow. Thank you to the Winnebago County Board for allowing me to be here this evening, and to the chairman for also allowing me to speak. I also want to just touch on the fact that I believe we are seeing and hopefully even feeling that we're at a new day of collaboration, from collaboration in our policing, and our emergency response efforts, as well as our collaborative efforts in economic development. I thank you for all of you to consider thoughtfully tonight's Barbara Coleman Village proposal. To me, this is a unique opportunity where you have Rock Valley College, you have Rockford Local Development Corporation, the City of Rockford, Winnebago County, and the federal government, and soon we hope the private sector, all partnering on one effort. This is about us working together to create local solutions to our local problems. And our local problem on this accord is workforce development. Chairman Haney often talks about touching different boxes. I just want to talk about 3 of those boxes that mean a lot to me. First is, and I guess 3 of those boxes that I believe Barbara Coleman touches. One is the physical area that we're talking about, down on South Main. We are doubling down on existing development. South Main, with the city and the state funds that have went to it, we are seeing efforts at the Fire Station 3 with the brand new station. We're seeing a multi-million-dollar health clinic from Swedish American on Marcassano. And what may seem small to some, we're seeing a brand new gas station go in right on South Main, which means a great deal to those folks who live in that area. This building was once seen as a beacon of employment, with more than 5,000 individuals being employed. And now cynics are pointing to it as a decay of our city. And we have an opportunity tonight and over the next several weeks and months to change that. Second, this project does something that quite often, as an elected official, I can say this, we don't often listen and actually act on items that our constituents bring forward. I meet with businesses every single week. The #1 issue they mention is workforce development. We have an opportunity tonight to not just talk the talk, but actually listen, react, and create a solution that they have been calling for. Third, it's easy to look at tonight's vote as a vote on infrastructure, and it is. It's easy to look at it as a vote in blacktop. It's easy to look at it as a vote on water pipes and different infrastructure needs, but I'm urging you that you look at it more as an investment in all of our people. You look at it as an investment from the 8th grader who goes to Flint in Rockford, in the city of Rockford, or the 8th grader at Pecatonica Middle School, or the 8th grader at Stephen Mack. This is going to touch all of our residents. And I truly appreciate your thoughtful consideration on what I believe is a tremendous catalytic proposal that'll get this project and these developments back on our tax rolls and impacting hundreds of our citizens. Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you being here. Our next speaker, Chairman of the Rock Valley College Board, Patrick Murphy. Appreciate you changing your flight to be here, Chairman.
No problem. I didn't change my shirt though. So I want to thank you, Chairman Haney and the Winnebago County Board for allowing me to speak tonight. I also want to thank all the finest we have here, Rockford's finest, the Winnebago County Sheriffs and RPD that are here. Thank you for protecting us. I came here as well, like Mayor McNamara. I'm a small business owner in the community, in manufacturing specifically. I travel all over the United States, all over Central America, South America, and the world. I actually train in a lot of facilities like what we're proposing here in the Barbara Coleman project. And it's one of the things that our community lacks, is we do not have modern day facilities for this type of training. It's also one of the reasons why we hired our current president, is his expertise in this exact field. He's done this project before. This is what we were anticipating to move forward with. The community has spoken. And when it spoke, it said that healthcare and manufacturing are the two largest employers in our region. The college has just did a ribbon cutting on campus for a new healthcare sciences building. It was a great success. We've also had a great success with the airport, and we're looking for a great success with the Barbara Coleman project as well, and to get what our community needs and to help job force training with that. It's where our future is. There's understanding for budget concerns and things like this. From the college's standpoint, this project is actually going to be a cost saving of several $100,000 a year from our operating budget. It's cheaper for us. So from a college standpoint, I support this project. One of the greatest things about Rockford and the history of Rockford is our ability to adapt and change to a changing environment. We were a world leader in clock manufacturing. We were a world leader in watch manufacturing. We were a world leader in fasteners and screws, and we've been world leaders in everything. Every time something changed, we were able to adapt and change with it. This building has sat there for 40 years, and we haven't done anything with it. We've lost our ability to adapt and change. So I urge the members to vote in a little bit of a change here, to take that building and put it back online. Let's get it, useful again. And tell the stories of our historical past. Voting no against this, to me, is voting no for progress in Rockford. This is what we need. This is what the community has asked for. It sat there for 40 years. Doing nothing with it is basically acceptance of status quo. So in my mind, I urge the county to vote in favor of this project, and I look forward to moving in and serving the community and their needs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. Next speaker, Mike Shabloski, Transform Rockford, also formerly of Woodward.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Haney. Thank you to the board for giving me an opportunity to speak here tonight. Thank you to my fellow residents of Winnebago County and the staff for being here. I thank the board for considering tonight a partnership with the City of Rockford for the redevelopment of Barbara Coleman campus and to effectively be a partner in the communities and Rock Valley College's plans for economic development, workforce development, and community development. This project aims to leverage great assets in our community and is aligned with the community's vision of making this region one of America's hubs for advanced manufacturing and logistics, as well as seeing that each neighborhood, corridor, and resident thrives. This region is already home to world-class manufacturers and career opportunities that are a primary source to bring dollars to this region, grow our economy, and grow our tax base. Employees in this region routinely today design, fabricate, assemble, test, and service some of the world's most sophisticated components and systems in the world. Products that are sought throughout the world to make life safer, more productive, and more enjoyable. But each employer in the region doing this needs one thing consistently, as you heard earlier, a reliable supply of talented and qualified people to sustain this growth that we're experiencing. I thank Rock Valley College and Winnebago County and the city for its leadership, for bringing our community's focus to this subject and aiming to meet the region's workforce needs in connection with the redevelopment of Parker-Coleman. I also thank the city and the county for looking to partner with Rock Valley College in a way that can support the revitalization of a neighborhood and an important corridor in our region, while also leveraging recent investments and planned investments in downtown Rockford and the Main Street corridor. I thank these organizations for planning together to create a regional center of educational excellence and to create a pipeline of talent to drive economic development and growth for decades to come, and to lay the foundation for neighborhood and corridor improvement and transformation, all in a single project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shablasky. Next speaker, John Eckberg from Circle Boring, and I think to some of our longstanding board members, I think you sat next to him just a few years ago. So thank you for being here, Mr. Eckberg.
Thank you, Chairman Haney, and the many county board members. It's a privilege to have served, and thank you for your service here. I support this Parker-Coleman Village concept for two reasons: civic pride and economic sense. Civic pride is some of the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that used to work there. In fact, one of them, Dick Crosby, is here. He worked there for 30 years or so, many years. His father worked there for many years. There are people that, when they drive by now, they go, oh my gosh, I remember I used to get a paycheck there. And the tens of thousands of people that drive by, maybe never work there, but they see a factory that's run down. We have a chance to have civic pride in this and many other sites, but this is a good stake in the sand. I'm excited about being a part of this transformation by supporting it. Second of all, common sense economics. Right now, Leibovich Brothers is just a mile away from the Parker-Coleman plant. They need 15 positions filled. Shop guys, gals. They're 35 grand a year, maybe not, but that's a starting wage. And then we all know about the 7-to-1 freight ratio, so there's probably 2 professionals, 60 to 80,000, maybe 4 or so semi-professional. We're dealing with about $1 million a year in that company alone. So you're going to put in $3.2 million of infrastructure. Every year you're going to get $1 million from a company like Leibovich. And that's one company. Circle Boring, we've got average age of almost in the 60s. We need to have 10 new people in about 10 years. We need to get really active in our recruiting, training, and I think the Parker-Coleman Village is that. I'm excited. And we are, I think, on the cusp of making the transformational thing of this economics. So please support this. I know you're going to vote tonight. I hope you vote positive, but it's not over. You don't just say, oh, we check the box. It's the collaborations that you're starting to put together, the Rock Valleys, the interactions with the Leiboviches and the Circle Borings, that's going to make those jobs really start coming. So please support this tonight. Look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Eckberg. Appreciate you being here. Our next speaker, Bruce Roberts, also a former county board member, and he's here to talk public safety this evening. Thank you for being here, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've managed to get the first part of the evening, and that was walking up here and not falling, so I'm doing okay so far. Last time I was in this room was probably 15 years ago, the last time I was a member of the Winnebago County Board. Back then, I used to carry a comb because I had hair. I don't have hair anymore. I don't carry a comb anymore. But I still had a great concern as a member of this community for the folks, not only in this room, but everybody else out in the county, roughly 300,000 people. My concern is for public safety. I used to be a policeman a long, long time ago. It's unfortunate the way things have deteriorated in this country, but we have problems with heroin, we have a number of things. No matter what you do on the issue with the sheriff, and I commend him, I read that article that he had in the paper on Sunday, it was a great article. No matter what you do, people aren't going to be happy with you, okay? They're going to be offended. But the thing to keep into consideration is that if you don't adequately staff and equip police officers, people get hurt. I've gone to many law enforcement officers' funerals over the years. The first one was Mike Mayborn a few months after I came on, and I was working on Randy Lancaster. You've got some really great people that work for the Sheriff's Department. They need your support. There are ways to create money. There are ways to do things. I think there's a couple people in the audience that have some ideas. Whatever you need to do, whatever you do, people are going to be mad at you, all right? But the general public relies on you. Your primary consideration is public safety, so that people are safe in their homes, safe to move about in the community. And the guys that carry a badge and work in jail and arrest people have what they need to do the job adequately. I will cut this short and tell you thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate the opportunity, and I hope you will search in your heart and do what you know needs to be done to help out the cops. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Next speaker, Gary Anderson, to speak on Barbara Coleman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Anderson.
Chairman, County Board members, tonight we have an opportunity to seize an opportunity, leverage our assets, and create a vision for our future. Rock Valley's commitment to training our future workforce at Barbara Coleman will serve as an anchor for its redevelopment. It will build on a manufacturing legacy that has driven our economic vitality, a penchant for entrepreneurship, and equipping a valued workforce with skills needed to compete in a world economy. As a key player in these downtown redevelopments, I know that none of them have been easy to do. But we are succeeding in rebuilding and reinventing our urban core. We have created an investment atmosphere in our urban core that is unprecedented since the 1920s by using the assets we have and utilizing the financial tools that support this type of investment. Barbara Coleman has languished for years as a difficult property to redevelop. However, key components necessary for its revitalization have now been completed to lay a solid foundation for its future redevelopment. 10 years ago, this project might have been a pipe dream, but today we have laid a foundation to make it a reality. Recent investments in our infrastructure were critical with the reconstruction of the Morgan Street Bridge, South Main Street, over $80 million in private downtown reinvestment, with more to come. EPA cleanup of the site, RBC's commitment to this facility as a training center, Fordham Forward's commitment as a purpose-built community to revitalize the surrounding neighborhoods, and District's 205 commitment to rebuild a new school for Kishwaukee and renovate Washington Elementary. These investments have all created an alignment of opportunities that are exciting and building a new economic future for this neighborhood and our entire community. Partnerships are the keystones in leveraging our assets and creating our vision for the future. We all need to be participants in shaping our future and seizing these critical opportunities. We urge you to vote yes tonight in support of this EPA grant application, this intergovernmental agreement, and participation in the matching funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Next speaker, Susan Lewandowski, discussing Barbara Coleman.
Thank you, Chairman Haney and the County Board for letting me speak. I'm speaking on behalf of two entities, if you will. SWIFT, Southwest Ideas for Today and Tomorrow, which is very active in promoting businesses in Southwest Rockford and wants to have more businesses to connect with and help move this great idea along. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Ethnic Heritage Museum and the Grand Genester House. And we are very grateful that we were able to reopen the Grand Genester House due to so many people who are in this room today and continuing efforts. We have a new name for our two spots. It's Heritage Museum Park. just to kind of throw that in as a little plug. One of the things that I think will be wonderful for advancing the redeveloping, if you will, the Barbara Coleman property is that businesses will be able to grow in the area, and that's what we so desperately need in this kind of rundown area, if you will. We already have history in the area. That's where Rockford began. That's where the businesses were at one time. And I'm proud to be partnering. Our museum is very happy to partner with Tinker's Swiss Cottage, Clem Arboretum, and Erlander across the river, which is just a stone's throw away. And we're spots that when people come to Rockford, they can visit in that part of town. I'm very pleased with seeing the redevelopment so far that IDOT started with the road and getting things, creating a beautiful river view there by 15th Avenue and the Port Clairs, with removing some of those buildings. And now I think the momentum is going to continue, and I'm so pleased to hear that, because we can just move it right along, right down on the 100 block of South Main, the 1100 block, and so on, and connect to the great development that's going on in downtown Rockford. I made multiple notes, and I'll just see if I can kind of see where I scribbled them in here. I think it will be so good to have the facades, if you will, on the buildings that are in the 100 block and 1100 block of South Main, to get those up and looking fresh and good again, and get businesses to occupy those buildings. They're historic buildings that have names on them that can be even more recognized, and maybe people that come to Rockford, and of course they travel on South Main, it's a main thoroughfare into our city, and they can see the history, the early history in Rockford. They can see Barbara Coleman, that is will offer so much with these redevelopment plans. I can envision myself perhaps condos on the river at the back of Barbara Coleman, businesses in there and so on. And thank you again for the time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Lewandowski. Our last speaker this evening is Kevin McCarthy to discuss the cuts to the sheriff's budget. Thank you for being here, Mr. McCarthy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Haney, and also thank you to the County Board for having me here on this Thursday, just with little views on my side of things, I guess you could say. I'm Kevin McCarthy. Some of you know me, some of you don't, but I'm always in and around the community. I'm out and about, whether it be attending Rockton River Market on a Wednesday, going to 4th of July celebrations in Winnebago, or Cherry Valley Days near my house, or even attending the city market here on Fridays. And plus, with my appointments and just being the social person as I am, I'm out and about the community, and what's on the community mind is the public safety topic. And there are many community-minded people like myself that put a great effort forward on a daily basis, showing the positives of our various communities. We truly have a lot to offer. That by cutting the sheriff's budget by over $4 million, our great efforts are jeopardized, if not being tossed aside. The safety of the public must always be first and foremost. If not, people will not feel safe, and in turn this will affect the businesses and those visiting in the area, such as sporting events. We want those out-of-towners back to see the love we have for our region. You take away a police presence or simply a lack of presence or response time to a scene of a potential crime that could have been prevented or kept at bay. You now open the door to more crime because criminals see the opportunity. And believe me, when they hear about cutting in the police department, they really love that. Like you, I truly understand budgets, so there's only so much money to go around and so forth. We're overtaxed, so increasing taxes are not the answer. Saying that this needs to be revisited, and the exciting part about this is you're a part of the revisit program to prevent total cutting of the sheriff's department and their budget. Where the cuts will occur, I don't know. Maybe possible layoffs, deputies, whether it be in the department or at the county jail level in various support roles or a combination, I don't know. But unfortunately, I do know and feel confident that wherever they take place, depending how deep the budget goes and the cuts, will put to serve to protect us and protect those at greater risk. My father was a Chicago police officer for 33 years, and I could only imagine what my mom went through, thinking, is he going to come home today? Who's going to take care of these 4 kids if something happens? Well, fortunately, my father had a wonderful career in law enforcement. As I mentioned, 33 years, and a good part of that was because he had great people, and they had a great support staff behind them. And it was with the politicians that gave them the tools to do their job well. From what I gathered, since 2015, there were over 70 lives saved because deputies were able to administer Narcan to those who overdosed on heroin. Future success stories like this will be at risk. Now is the time to work with the sheriff's office, set up your meetings with your personnel immediately, see what can be done, what can be trimmed, as I feel you're the right mix of minds here. You're really a great group to work with, and the Sheriff's Department really want to work with you. So you can be a part of making this happen. It can be done. I have the confidence in all of you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you again to all our speakers this evening. Our next item of business, minutes. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes from August 10th meeting and to lay over the minutes from August 24th, 2017. I had a motion by Mr. Nicolosi, a second by Mr. Jury and Boomer. Any questions on the minutes before us? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes pass. Thank you. Announcements and communications. Clerk Mullins.
The items listed below were received as correspondence.
Okay, we'll place those on file. Thank you very much. Next item of business, board member correspondence. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 announcements. The first being the Rockford Historical Society and Haunted Rockford Winnebago County Cemetery Bus Tour. This is this Sunday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. You will meet at Veterans Memorial Hall, parking lot on the south side, that's 211 North Main Street. The price of this event is $40 and must be paid in advance. You will also be treated to a buffet dinner at the Command Post Restaurant. And there's a www.hauntedrockford.com or call 969-1999. The second piece is understanding the First World War a century later. This is the second of the third of 3 events. And this one is September 20th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And its title is For the Want of America. America Goes Over There. And the cost for this with lunch is $12. Again, this is September 20th, and it's at Memorial Hall as well. And lastly, from the county board members, and it's in reference to Winnebago County Sheriff Department logo. In light of recent information regarding the logo used by the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department, Winnebago County board members would like to be on record that we find the use of such graphics to be unprofessional and inappropriate. While we support our local law enforcement officers as they serve and protect our community, we feel this logo gives the wrong impression, and this is from all the board members that are present here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any other board member comments? Mrs. Gorel.
I just want to let you know that on the 26th of September at Northwest Suburban Library in Nuss Park, the League of Women Voters will be holding a group meeting on human trafficking. I do hope as many of you can get there as you can. I think, Chairman, you've even been asked to be there that night, have you not?
Yes, ma'am.
So we'd love to have you all out there. You have no clue, many of us don't have, except all those people sitting in the back of the room have a clue of what's going on with human trafficking. but those of us who sit on this board don't. And we truly need to be really informed of what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gorel, and I'll ask Julia to make sure that gets around to all the board members one more time. Thank you, Mrs. Gorel. Any other board member comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the chairman's report. I'll make it brief. When you walk in the Winnebago County Administration Building, to the right is WinCart, and volunteers man that booth or desk to kind of do basic customer service. And thousands of taxpayers and residents are helped by volunteers every year walking in. 84-year-old Barb Martin, who's volunteered at WinCart for several years, is going to receive the Chairman's Service Excellence Award. Wonderful woman. She has stopped after many years of volunteering. She's moving to be with family in Pennsylvania. And I just wanted to acknowledge how much we appreciate all our volunteers, whether it's out at animal services or in the Winnebago County Administration Building. And Barb is a great example of the very best of that. On Monday, we will have a special board meeting. I believe the board members by now are well aware of this, but want to make it very clear to our friends here this evening. On Monday, we'll have a special board meeting. It'll be the official recommendation of the budget, of the fiscal year 18 budget, which begins October 1st. That is not the end of the process. That's just the next step in the process. So what happens there is it becomes the board's budget. And over the next few weeks, you're going to have a lot of discussion, as there has been today and in the previous last few weeks. And that will be at 5:30 here on Monday. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion around budget. On September 28th is when we would officially adopt the budget, and that begins again on October 1st. So we will see our board members. It will not be a meeting of the whole, it'll be a special board meeting so that we can introduce the budget. I know there'll be robust discussion, as has been occurring here over the last several weeks. To that end, just very quickly, I see a couple of folks here tonight. One is a kid I coached when he went to Rock Valley College. I coached him basketball, and the other is a guy that I went to high school with that are involved in law enforcement. And you better believe this is something that our board is taking very seriously. What I can also say is that since I graduated high school, we've lost $1 billion of wealth in this region. And I think tonight we have a lot of incredible people who represent the very best of our community here. That's not politician talk. There's great people here. And what we do need to do, I do believe, is keep talking. And I promise you this, and I know the board is committed to this as well, is as tough as the conversations are, over the next few weeks, we're going to continue tough discussions. I say that with all due respect to the sheriff. What I will also say, I want to thank my staff for how hard they're working, inheriting some of the things they've inherited with this budget, and working with our board and with our partners internally around very tough discussions. What I would ask your consideration on is let's not kill the canary in the coal mine that is saying that what we've done to this point may have worked, but we do need to pivot as we look forward, and that is no disrespect to anybody in this room. I appreciate all the board members who have called me and called our staff and have been in touch with multiple department heads. These conversations can't be ducked, they need to be had. So I want to thank the board, I want to thank our staff for all their extra efforts. I know Sheriff Carawan is here and look forward to tough but needed discussions here in the coming weeks. So thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Jury on the motion, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Fellers, Mrs. Gorel, Mr. Nicolosi on the second. Any questions on the consent agenda before us? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item of business, I talked to Mr. Biondo, Mr. Fiducia, and Mr. Westcott, and I'd asked the board to indulge me. We're just going to rearrange our committee order tonight, and we will ask Mr. Westcott from our Economic Development Committee to come on up and talk about Barbara Coleman. Then we will have Mr. Fiducia from Public Safety. Thank you, Judge Zenoff, for being here tonight. And then we will go to Mr. Biondo for Finance, and then we'll follow our normal order of operations. Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to call out Dr. Jensen and Michael Dunn Jr., if you would, please. Do we want to present the resolution first?
If you want under committee report, they can do their short overview, and then we can do it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
sir.
that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just step aside.
Your presentation should be. All right. Thank you, everybody. My name is Douglas Jensen, and I'm the president of Rock Valley College, and I thank the chairman and the members of the Winnebago County Board for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight to talk to you about a very important project that is very near and dear to me. What I have for you tonight is what I truly believe is one of the most important issues facing this community as we look forward to rebuilding our communities and looking at what the opportunities are ahead of us. What I'd like to do is I'd like to play for you a short video that will kind of encapsulate some of the conversations that we will be talking about.
In 1960, when taking into account all jobs in the American economy, 20% required a 4-year degree or higher, 20% were technical jobs requiring skilled training, and 60% were classified as unskilled. But what's the right percentage to meet the labor market demand for tomorrow? In 2018, Harvard University predicts only 33% of all jobs will require a 4-year degree or more, while the overwhelming majority will be middle-skilled jobs, requiring technical skills and training at the credential or associate degree level. A 4-year degree may have many benefits, but think about the people you know who, from an economic perspective, inefficiently spent time and money to get a degree that perhaps they didn't really need for the career they are in. The true ratio of jobs in our economy is 1 to 7. For every occupation that requires a master's degree or more, 2 professional jobs require a university degree, and there are over half a dozen jobs requiring a 1-year certificate or 2-year degree. And each of these technicians are in very high-skilled areas that are in great demand. This ratio is fundamental to all industries. It was the same in 1950, the same in 1990, and will be the same in 2030. The hope for encouraging university education is that as the number of university-trained workers increases, the demand for their services in the workplace will increase as well. Unfortunately, this is not so. The whole pie may get bigger as the labor force and the economy grows, but the ratio will not change. The reality is, there will not be more professional jobs available within the labor market, and some professional jobs have been replaced by technology, or are being outsourced. Well-intentioned attempts to send more and more students straight to the university will not change the types of jobs that dominate our economy, nor will a college-for-all mentality mask these labor market realities. The college-for-all rhetoric that has been so much a part of the current education reform movement is often interpreted as university-for-all. This message needs to be significantly broadened to a post-high school credential for all. Students at various educational levels have left school without employable skills, setting up our children for failure, costing them and taxpayers millions. All while the labor market is desperate for highly trained, skilled technicians.
That video is very important from the perspective of you look at that ratio of 1 to 7. Each of the board members should have a package that is on your tabletop of an imperative document that we have drafted that you might have heard conversations around the community about. And then I'd like to reverse that ratio of 1 to 7 to 7 to 1. And what that really means to us is that for every professional credential degree person we have in our community, we need 2 baccalaureate individuals to support that person, and we need 7 highly skilled technical individuals to support that, that structure. That ratio has been consistent, as you saw in the video, from 1950 and is projected out through 2030. So for a successful economy, that ratio is very critical to where we move forward at. So what I'd like to share with you then is is the highlights of that report that you have in front of yourself. And you look at what has traditionally occurred here in Rockford and the county of Winnebago. We've had success in terms of our aviation program with AAR. It's one of those concepts where we look at building the 7s. We have the partnerships with RBC and NIU on the engineering and pre-engineering programs.
As you're all aware of the partnerships that we have with St. Anthony's College of Nursing, and you'll also see that we're forming out, getting nationally recognized for our cold forming and also the TechWorks programs that we have. This is also set in context of the new WIOA legislation and how that is going to be driven in terms of what the resources will be used for to meet the needs of our community in terms of workforce. So when you look at economic development in terms of the college, I look at this from a couple of different perspectives. The most important thing for me is that you look at this in the context of what I call workforce development, economic development, and community development. If we want to have a strong workforce, we need to have a strong economy. If we want to have a strong economy, we need to have strong communities. And if we're going to have strong communities, we need to have a strong workforce to support the growth in those communities. This ratio, this diagram, I think is critical to where we are going. And if you look at the idea that you're hearing us talk about as linking talent with opportunity, that is at the center of those three spheres of influence. So when we talked about economic development a moment ago, these are some of the highlights that we have seen in terms of the economic commitment that has been made through public-private partnerships. We also look at the economic development, what has occurred here in our community. What you'll see here is that for associate degree earners graduating from Rock Valley College earn $400,000 more over the income of a person that has a high school diploma. It is estimated that 96% of the individuals that remain in the state of Illinois. That is a return on your investment. The state and local government receive on a rate of return of 6.7 on the investments that they make into the college, Rock Valley College. And the activities that the student body generate in terms of the economy is about $30 million impacting the local economy in the state. When you look at that from a community development perspective, you'll look at what the things that have occurred recently in terms of the downtown center and location, bringing more access to our communities in a central place, kind of removing the barriers of transportation. We have our high school pathways that you'll be hearing about. I've recently been meeting with all 9 school district superintendents as well as CNC on building these pathways so that we can start creating this concept as early in the K-12 experience as possible. The other thing that you'll see here is we have built out a presence to increase daytime population. What would happen if we were able to bring this programming that is currently out at our campus or at the Jefferson site? What would happen if we could bring this more centrally located and have it access to a population where there's transportation? The other part of this is we encourage the community service providers to join forces. This is the whole concept of the 721 idea, is we have to start building this culture of building the sevens that will lead on to creating the twos and the ones that our community will need to be successful and grow. The next aspect is how do you accomplish this? Well, the way we accomplish this is through this model right here that you see on the diagram. On the far left-hand side, we have the supply side, and we look at where all those learners are coming from and where these individuals. These are not just K-12. These are incumbent workers. These are new hires. These are people that are in transition. These are people who want to upskill. On the bottom of the diagram, you start seeing the demand side, the voice for the employer, the voice for where these job opportunities are going to occur. So as we make these investments, we can ensure that there are job opportunities for these individuals to go into. The stackable credential model that you see right there shows that it is a pathway where individuals can obtain a short-term credential, move on to employment, and then be able to come back and build that credential on in terms of lifelong learning and development. This will lead us to a pathway for our individuals. We know that many of our students go off to four-year institutions, and many times they come back. We have to find a way to make sure that they have the opportunity to finish their credentials, finish their education, and stay here within our community. As I mentioned a moment ago, you'll see here, this is where we started building this process out with the K-12 community, with the 9 school districts that we're working with, as well as CNC. We realize that we have to start addressing the remediation issue as early as possible so that we can ensure that the investment that is being made, we do not have to repeat or delay people from achieving the skill sets that they need to seek employment. And we cannot have individuals sitting on the sideline while we're waiting for them to remediate. So there are 9 pathways that we have been working on. Through the generosity and the vision of the Rock Valley College Foundation, they have funded us to create these 9 pathways that we will be rolling out within school districts to make sure that we start these processes as early as we can, and these will be directed toward the high employment opportunities, are what they refer to as high priority occupations. This is an example of how that stackable credential model works. So what you'll see here is that these credentials allow individuals to get very specific training, but they can then stack those credentials over time to complete an associate degree and then move on to a baccalaureate degree. So one of the things that is important to us is we set this stage for the conversation that you are having tonight, and then you look at what the opportunities are for our community. When I look at the college and I look at the region, I look at this from what I call a double bottom line system. We have a mission bottom line and we have a fiscal bottom line. When I look at the mission bottom line for the college, Barbara Coleman and the 721 concept meets a community goal. It meets a community good. It is scalable to address the future needs of our programs and our community in terms of opportunity. It aligns with those major initiatives that have already been in place that we've talked about. And it also increases and expands the presence of our downtown community, which is growing in terms of living, careers, and recreational. From a financial point of view, what this does for Rock Valley College is it shrinks the RVC fiscal footprint over time. Gives us a more cost-effective model that we can use in terms of, it would be less expensive for us to take on this initiative than it would be to renovate our property at the Jefferson location. It allows RVC to manage its facility cost and its capital cost in more of a predictive manner over time. This is what I think are some of the values of the Barbara Coleman project. I've had, as Chairman Murphy said a few moments ago, I've had the opportunity to be involved with these types of programs over time. I've participated in building out these types of initiatives in other communities. And what I'd like to do is share with you some reactions of individuals who've experienced what you're looking at tonight. Whoops.
Well, after I toured it, I just couldn't stop talking about it because it's really something special we have here in Pennsylvania now. And I chair the Manufacturing Caucus in the Senate, and I talk about this all the time because I can't believe it. I feel so proud that it's here in our county.
Well, it's about economic development, and the people who graduate from this are going to be like candy to manufacturers coming into the area.
I was absolutely amazed at the technology and the corporate look and feel of the place and really the quality of education.
I thought it was just incredible. Outstanding. Hardly. I think it's overwhelming.
It is an amazing place. You probably heard that word a lot. It is, I wish I could be a student here. It would be fun. Anytime you can get this kind of a platform for young men, young women to be educated, it makes sense.
I love that they're going to train folks from Marcellus Shell all the way through every step, even the pipelines. And I really think the welding program is one of only 70 in the whole country. We have a great opportunity here with this center to train a great workforce. It's going to make a good salary, and we'll just do nothing but enhance our region.
So much technology, so much potential there, and the fact that there's standard classrooms and work equipment, and it's all right within the students' reach.
So that's just a little bit of background on what other communities have seen and experienced as they've looked at these types of projects. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to share that with you. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to be here. I thank the county board members for giving us the opportunity. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, or I can turn the program back over to the...
We'll probably come back if there's any questions once we put it on the floor to vote on it. But thank you very much, Dr. Jensen.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. We have before you a resolution to authorize a commitment to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Rockford in support of the Barbara Coleman Village redevelopment project, and I so move.
We have a motion by Mr. Westcott, and we have some seconds. I'll go to Mrs. Red. This is her district first. Mr. Girl, Mr. Tassoni, and I'm missing hands, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Fellers, Mrs. Crosby, Mr. Biondo, Mr. Nicolosi, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Jury. Apologize if I missed anybody. We have the motion before us. Any questions by board members before we take the vote? I have Mr. Nicolosi first.
Thank you, Chairman. It's more of a statement than a question. I'm extremely optimistic about this project. With all the county, the city, and RBC coming together, that really brings a real warmness to my heart to see us collaborating such. I will say one thing, just one small brief warning. We've done things like this before in the past. So it's extremely important that the next step, and arguably the biggest step, is to market this. We need to get out to our community. We need to get out to our students. We need to let them know that this thing exists. If we can do this, it's a home run for our community. I'll back it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicolosi. I believe I have Mrs. Gorel and then Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things that we haven't talked about, this isn't just for our community since I'm a Rockford person, this happens to be a Winnebago County endeavor because this is going to help everyone, not only in Winnebago County, but our surrounding counties. We need to remember that people come here to Rockford to work and they come from all over. This is not just a Rockford product. We need to be involved in it. Back when we did have a vocational school, I had 3 daughters that went through vocational school, and the day they walked out and graduated was the day they had jobs. And we have too many children walking out and graduating even, have no jobs, have no future. And this is an opportunity for us to get those children back into the groove of working and having good careers. They have no clue what's out there for them because we never take the time anymore to introduce them to what our community has to offer. I do see that we have very many, and I know of many manufacturers who went out of business because we did not have technology here to schools to teach them how to take their businesses and upgrade them with the new evolving climate that we have today, and they got left behind. So it's got to be one of the greatest things that we're going to have to offer Winnebago County and our surrounding counties. I'm looking forward to this. And I'm glad you're going to be working with 9 different schools systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gorel. Mr. Webster, then Mr. Jury.
Thank you, Chairman. I know I'm going to be in the minority on this, so I expect to hear a lot of grief from my fellow board members when this is said and done. I'm not so much opposed to the idea, because I'm not, but what I don't really like is the way that the whole thing rolled out. In the past, we've had time to look at things and figure out different methods or ways or to come up with financing and so forth. And this came upon us real fast, and I know I got the explanation that, oh yeah, it all just came together real quick and we have to make this decision right away or this whole thing could evaporate. I understand the arguments about that. But I do have a couple issues there about the funding of it there. For one, the contract reads 6 to 10 years, which is for the payoff on this, which is kind of ambiguous when you think about it, because for our host fees, now we have some 53 different funds that we're funding from the host fee now for over $4.5 million now coming out of that. So we're going to add another one there, and not knowing when it's going to end. On our other host fees, our long-term commitments, we always had an end in sight. We always said this is going to be a 4-year, 3-year, 10-year, whatever. And so, if you follow me for a minute, when we supported Nicholas Conservatory, we had these conversations back then about having, reaching out so many tentacles and supporting so many different things. When are we going to get overloaded? And so without knowing an end time for this one, how do we go ahead? How do we move ahead in the future? How do we plan in the future not knowing when something's going to end? Going back to Nicholas, when Park District came to us for Nicholas Conservatory and they wanted money, We already had so many things going out there at that time, which we still do, that we said, wait a minute, let's think about this for a minute. So what we did, we looked to see what was going to expire, what was next in line that we didn't have to fund anymore. As it turns out, it was Burpee, because we had a long-term commitment to Burpee. So we put the brakes on for Nicholas, not for long, but only until the commitment to Burpee expired. Then we said, okay, now we can take on another one. And that made a lot more sense to me. And so none of that was discussed. No one even thought about that, I guess, or didn't really give it much, I don't know, much weight. And then the other thought that I threw out the other night at our caucus meeting there was, out of all these things that we have, 53 different commitments, some 53 or 55, depends on who's counting, couldn't we redo the notes with some of these and take like 10%, 12% from some of the highest paid ones to fund this one? And so that's my feelings on it there, is I think they're just kind of stretching us pretty thin. A lot of promises were laying out there, and I'm afraid that we might hurt ourselves. And furthermore, part of the money we have just decided with our upcoming budget, part of this host fee money was to fund the sheriff's department. So it makes me wonder, is it wiser for us to put the money here, or should we put more of this money to take care of the sheriff's department's needs? So
Thank you,
it
Mr. Webster. I'll speak directly to a couple of your comments. The timing, I believe we talked about this in the Economic Development Committee a total of 3 times and at caucus over the last month. And I do know this, the federal government, the EDA, has asked the county board to weigh in and be on record supporting this project. It is a very simple answer on the up to 3.2, not to exceed 3.2 million. And that would be over at our discretion 6 to 10 years, meaning that we would control that. So when the EDA comes in and they give our community $2 million because the city of Rockford, Rock Valley, and the county are in, and we get this extra federal money for our community, we can then say it's settled out and we only need to be at X, but not to exceed 3.2. If we decide that it's 10 years, that's a board decision. The majority of the board members that want it to be 10, it'll be 10, whether it's $320,000 a year or it's $250,000 a year with a total, with a different bottom line. So that'll be coming back to the board. The commitment by the county will not be, we will not be writing the check before we get the federal dollars. That is contingent, and it's also contingent on Rock Valley being in, which they are at this point as well. So I think we're rightly protected. And I would just, say this, I completely respect the question about timing. I think the city of Rockford got put in a tough spot. Thank you, federal government, but we're happy to take the $2 million off their hands at the end of their fiscal year. Their fiscal year and our fiscal year end on the same day, and they need to send the money by the end of September. So we're responding as quickly as we can. We pushed them off and asked for a few more weeks so that we could go through our board process, but it's a fair question. Any other board questions or comments? Mr. Jury.
Thank you, Chairman Haney. I'm going to support this project. Number one, I think it's for the benefit of the entire community. You know, I've lived in Rockford a long time, and I've always said that if Rockford doesn't succeed, nobody succeeds. It's the heart of our county, and we need that type of thing. But having said that, you know, Winnebago County has done so many projects with host fees. We've done the sports board, the factory over here for the soccer and stuff, and we've done Burpee, and we've done Nicholas Conservatory. And every one of those things that the county has reached out to has been a benefit for this community. And I'm going to support it. I heard my colleagues to do it because we all need to step up to the plate and move forward. Thank you.
I have Mr. Biondo, then Mr. Wilson, and then Mrs. Wren. Mr. Biondo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In a past life, I actually served on the Rock Valley College Board for 9 years and 2 as board chair. Mrs. Gorel is absolutely right. It isn't just for Rockford. Rock Valley College covers 2 full counties plus 4 other ones. It's 6 counties that they have a part of. And they have done, in the past and now, do an excellent job raising the level of students that they have under their jurisdiction to, do a great job. And also this vote tonight is contingent upon the grant. And if the grant doesn't come, then there's no obligation. So I also will support it, and I think that we all should.
Mr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Biano. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Fred Westcott's Vice Chair of Economic Development for the county, I will be in support of this, and I urge all the other board members here to do likewise. And the question that Mr. Webster asked and that you answered, Chairman, I asked that question in our committee meeting. And that's the answer that I have to what you said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Red.
Thank you, Chairman. I urge my fellow board members to vote for this project. It has been said, it will help the whole region. And a good thing, it's on the west side of the river. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Groh.
Thank you, Chairman. I am also going to be in support of this project. I've been a long advocate for manufacturing job training in our area, especially on the west side of Rockford, which has been neglected for years. So I think this will just be a beneficial boon to not only the west side, not only Rockford, but the whole northern region of Illinois. And I want to thank the Rockford College Board and Dr. Jensen for the work on this, the city of Rockford, and also the county. So I urge everyone to vote for this. This is a win-win for all of us. The more jobs we have out there, the more income that comes in property taxes, sales taxes, the less crime we have. It's a win all the way around. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Groh. One point of clarification on host fees as it relates to the overall budget. Out of our finance committee and part of our overall fiscal year 18 budget planning process, our finance committee is recommending and will be part of the discussion on Monday, just a forewarning, is that because of our internal budget challenges, that on a one-time basis, that $500,000 will be recommended out of host fees for internal capacity building projects. That could be an IT project, a capital project. It is not recommended, nor will it happen, based on everything I've heard from board members, as is tradition, that it would go towards salaries. And the reason for that is the promise we made the community when we accepted other people's garbage into our community, is that we would use these for special projects. And that's we're going to honor the spirit of I think that commitment we made the community. So on one hand, it is budget relieving if the board decides to approve that, but I want to parse that out and say that the finance committee is recommending, and that was part of their discussion, that $500,000 of host fees would go into our budget. It would alleviate pressures on our budget on the capital and project side. That would free up dollars other places on a one-time basis. Then it would go back into the host fee fund and reinvest it in the future. Just want to be clear on that. Follow up, Mr. Groh.
Thank you, Chairman. Just real quick, just like to remind the board that some of our host fee commitments will be coming to an end shortly in the near future, which will free up dollars for more economic development and also for this project. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Groh. Mr. McDonald, I missed you. I apologize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During my day job, I work in a manufacturing facility where I manage 125 employees. So I can speak directly and understand the need that we need much more highly skilled, trained employees. One of our guest speakers earlier tonight mentioned the word that we're at a turning point right now. And I very much agree with that. We are at a turning point. I think this is a terrific idea, but my concern is if we cut public safety, are there going to be jobs out there for these people to go to? So to me, they go hand in hand. If we cut public safety, we're also cutting the number of jobs that are going to be available to these graduates. So that's my biggest focus or concern for this project. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mrs. Grohl.
We also need to keep in, thank you. We also need to keep in mind that this is grant money also. and that's going to be backing us up as this goes on. And it's important we realize that that grant money is running out. We aren't going to be able to get it, I believe, after the end of September. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we need, some of this project has already started. It was started back in the early 2000s, and that's when some of that got cleaned up down there for environmental reasons. That property back then was getting prepared to become some type of an institute even for education. We had colleges that were going to be coming in and using that building. Then we had a change of administration. The bottom fell out of everything when it came to tax money and whatever else we needed. So actually, some of the groundwork has already been done for this, and we're going to be doing infrastructure. I believe that's where our share is coming from. Without infrastructure, you have nothing. We are going to be the basis of this. And so carefully give this consideration. The people who think that we're taking this out of their real estate taxes need to understand we aren't doing this. This is an opportunity that we need to jump on now. All opportunities, good opportunities, do come at the last minute because there's some money left over someplace and they have to use it up by a certain time. And so this is an excellent opportunity for us to jump on that bandwagon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Girl. Before I go back to Mr. Westcott, Mr. Salgado had a question.
Yes, I'd like to call the question.
Okay. We have a motion to call the question, and we have a second by Mr. Nicolosi. Mr. Boomer, all those in favor of calling the question, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed to calling the question? Okay. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Westcott.
We have a motion on the floor, and we're ready to go.
Okay. With that, all those in favor of the Barbara Coleman project signify by saying aye.
Aye. I think roll call.
We ask for a roll call by Mr. Jury, so I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please. Thank you, Mr. Jury.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jury,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Nicolosi,
Yes.
Red,
Yes.
Salgado,
Yes.
Tassoni,
Yes.
Webster,
No.
Westcott,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Biondo,
Yes.
Booker,
Yes.
Boomer, Crosby,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Fiducia,
Yes.
Girl,
Yes.
Gorall.
Yes.
17 yes, 2 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Our next item of business, Public Safety Committee, Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like this new order, too. Your public safety gets 4 resolutions. The first resolution is a resolution authorizing the Winnebago County Sheriffs to extend the contract for towing impounds in county vehicles, and I so move.
We have a motion by Mr. Fiducia, a second by Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Booker, and Mr. Jury, and Mrs. Red. Any questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next is a resolution authorizing the termination of an intergovernmental agreement among the County of Winnebago and the Illinois Department of Human Services and the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority for operation of the Illinois Center for Excellence for Behavioral Health and Justice, and I so move.
We have a motion on item C for Mr. Fiducia. I have a second by Mr. Westcott, Mr. Fellers, Mr. Jury, Mr. Boomer. Any questions by board members? And again, I just thank Judge Zinal for being here. Thank you very much, Judge. Seeing no question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next 2 items would be, I believe, the next 2 items are basically the same. I was wondering if we could bundle them together.
Absolutely. We have a motion by Mr. Fiducia to bring together D&E. I have a second by Mr. Fellers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll bundle them together.
Thank you so much. And the first is a resolution authorizing execution for an intergovernmental agreement setting forth the responsibilities of the parties for operation of the Illinois Justice Center for Excellence in Behavioral Justice. And the next one is a resolution authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement to continue the operation of the Illinois Center for Excellence in Behavioral Health and Justice. And I so move.
We got a motion on letters D and E by Mr. Fiducia, a second by Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Fellers, and Mr. Jury. Any discussion on D and E under public safety? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's passed. Thank you. Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Fiducia. Next item of business, Finance Committee, Mr. Biondo. All discombobulated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll remember my order next time. I'd like to also bundle together items B, C, D, and E. These are all resolutions authorizing settlement of claims against Winnebago County, and they were supported unanimously by the Finance Committee.
So we have a motion by Mr. Biondo and a second by Mr. Jerry Boomer and Girl to take B, C, D, and E together and bundle them. All those in favor of bundling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're bundled. Mr. Biondo.
Thank you. And I would like to move for resolutions authorizing settlement of claims against the County of Winnebago. First entitled Kurt Ditzler versus the county for $27,668.30. Entitled David Ellis versus Winnebago County for $13,728.69. And also entitled Frank Fasula versus County for $137,834.79. And last, entitled Lori Stutzman versus Winnebago County for $38,880.11. And I so move.
We have a motion on B, C, D, and E on the resolutions on settlements regarding Ditzler versus Fasula and Stutzman. May I have a second? Mr. Webster, Mrs. Crosby, Mr. Girl. Any questions by board members? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Biondo.
Thank you. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Biondo. Next item of business, Zoning Committee, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. We have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Next item of business, Operations and Administrative Committee, Mr. Jury.
Thank you, Chairman Haney. Your Operation and Administrative Committee has two resolutions before you this evening. The first one is a resolution establishing date, time, and location for county board meetings, and I move for its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Jury, and I have a second by Mr. Wilson, Mr. Hoffman, Mrs. Red, and Mrs. Crosby. Any questions by board members? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Jury.
Thank you. The next resolution, we have a resolution renewing chiropractic services, and I move for its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Jury on item C on the chiropractic services, second by Mr. Hoffman, Mrs. Gorel, and Mrs. Red. Any questions by board members on item C? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Jury.
Thank you. That concludes our report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jury. Next item of business, Public Works Committee, Mr. Kelly.
Public
Public Works has three resolutions this evening. The first is a resolution authorizing a change order for the Riverside and Forest Hills joint repair. It's a deductive change order in the amount of $11,282.23 based on measurement and quantities, and I move its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Kelly on item B, and I have a second by Mr. Jury, Mr. Boomer, and Mr. Webster. Any questions on item B under Public Works? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Kelly?
Our second resolution is awarding bid for the purchase of a new wheel end loader at a cost of $222,000, and I move its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Kelly on item C. I have a second by Mrs. Crosby, Mr. Boomer, and Mr. Webster. Any questions by board members on item C? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Kelly.
And our final resolution is for the award of bid for the Roscoe Road Bridge over the Rock River repair slope wall, and I move its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Kelly on item D under Public Works and a second by Mr. Boomer. Any questions by board members? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Kelly.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jury.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Jury and a second by Mr. Wilson and Boomer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good evening. Thank you very much, everybody.
Nice work, Dave.